Hello, and a very warm welcome to another conversation about change, where we talk about life and about how our lives change, how we make decisions sometimes, how life happens sometimes, and how we adapt and adopt new things. And my guest today, Zola Nene, TV chef and author of two international award-winning books. It's amazing. I got one as a present today, the latest one. Yay. So I'm a very happy person. Zola, welcome.
Thank you so
Good
much.
to have you.
Oh, what an honor. The honor is, yeah, I can hardly contain myself sitting here, actually. Thank you for having me.
You come from, born in Durban, but then grew up in Mossel Bay, George.
Yes. So, born in KZN. My mom's from Amazimtoti. My dad's from Umlazi. So grew up sort of in both areas and other areas of Durban. And then my family moved to George when I was about 5 years old. My dad, who was working in the petroleum industry, still works in the petroleum industry, he was moving from Sapref in Durban to a new plant that was opening, then called Mosgas in Mossel Bay. And my dad decided to move his family to George, not Mossel Bay, because there was a bit more going on in George than there was in Mossel Bay. And so he helped sort of start the plant and worked at the plant, and we lived in George, and I grew up in George.
How do you think that affected your life? How was your life different if you had stayed in Durban? A Zulu girl growing up in Durban,
right?
As
amongst Zulu people, right? As opposed to George in sort of an Afrikaans like community,
Zulu people.
Not Zulu people, the only Zulu family actually. I'm sure I think that it definitely had a change in the trajectory that my life took. I think that growing away, up far away from my extended family obviously meant that my core family was much, much closer, and that's the reason why we are so close today, because all we had was each other in such a very different circumstance, and with people who weren't like us and didn't speak the same language as us. So I think it definitely made us much, much closer.
And you went to York High School.
I did.
And your year was the first time that you were part of the first intake of black kids.
Well, in my primary school, because I moved when
really?
I was, so I went to Holy Cross Primary Convent. Yes, it was a convent. I was taught by nuns. And yes, we were the first enrollment of black kids into that primary school.
How did you experience that?
I think that my parents did a really good job of sort of sheltering us as kids and not exposing us to the sort of the nasties that were going on in terms of racial
What
segregation.
year are we talking about?
That was like 1990. So
sure.
it was pretty. It was
before the new South Africa.
It was before, and it was just as things were sort of starting to change, if you will. So I think that my parents did a good job of sheltering us from like the realities. And actually remember in primary school, noticing that we were the only ones, which was different from the play schools that I was in Durban, obviously. But you sort of thinking nothing of it, because I was a child amongst other kids and we were learning the same, etc., etc. And then we got to, I think it was standard 2. Oh, see, I'm showing my age now. I was talking in standards, but anyway. We started learning about history and about apartheid. And I remember sitting in class going, what? Wow, is this real? Like what? And I went home and I said to my parents, they're teaching us about the most heinous things at school. And my parents were like, oh, what are you learning? And we told them. And that was the point at which my parents sat us down. They were like, okay, you're learning about it now. Let us tell you our experiences. Let us tell you what was actually going on in the world that we're living in. And they told us about their dom passes and how my dad needed permission to be in certain neighborhoods, and how my paternal grandmother was a domestic worker, and how she was treated. And and I was like, oh my gosh. So they really did a good job of sort of keeping that away from us until we were old enough to actually understand what it was and what it meant. Yeah.
And do you think that growing up, the way you grew up, made it almost equipped you for where you are now in a totally cosmopolitan, open environment, and just being yourself, and you don't look like a person with a chip on her shoulder?
I don't, and listen, that's all credit to my parents. They never taught me hate. They never showed me any hate that they may have expressed towards the government at the time or any other races. That never came up in my family upbringing. We were always encouraged. We were always told that we were fantastic and to play with everyone and love abundantly. So I think that absolutely, that is why I am a product of that upbringing. I don't have a chip on my
child.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I have the most fantastic parents who, were able to just separate reality from our family life at the time.
Yeah. And then you went to Stellenbosch.
I did.
To do law.
I did.
Why did you choose that?
Because...
I mean, looking back, it just sounds
like why?
Really weird.
Because, at high school level, when you're deciding what your career is going to be, chefing was never on my radar. Just because at the time there was no chefs to look up to. There were no chefs that looked like me that I could go, oh, I could be that. So it never even crossed my mind. I was always talkative. I was always argumentative. So I thought, absolutely, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to go and fight for things and talk people under the table and do that. And obviously the reality was not what it was. I loved my law studies to a certain degree. I love criminal law, which I found really fascinating, but I don't have the guts or the heart for criminal law. There's no way. I'd be like crying in a courtroom. Nobody wants that type of criminal lawyer. So, and every other aspect I didn't find interesting. So mercantile law, commercial law, all of that I didn't find interesting. So literally in my second year exams, end of year exams, I called my dad and I was like, listen, I'm going to finish because BCom LLB is a 3-year course and then you specialize in certain. And I was like, listen, I'll finish writing and I'll do another year, but I don't think I'm going to be a lawyer. And my dad in that phone, I remember it like it was yesterday. He said to me, don't write a single other exam, come home and let's talk about it. And I was like, no, just let me finish. And he's like, absolutely not. You don't waste 1 second doing anything that makes you unhappy. And if this makes you unhappy,
he must be an amazing person.
He's amazing. I can't gush enough about him. And I went home and he sat me down and he goes, okay, so tell me what do you love to do without thinking about it? What is it that makes you happy when you're doing it without you even noticing how happy you are? And I'm like, I really like to cook. And he was like, oh, okay, let's explore. Let's explore that. And then he said, because the UK was the only real country at the time that took chefing as a profession seriously, he was like, go to the UK, go and work in kitchens there and see if chefing is what you want to do. And that's exactly what I did. So at the time, you could do a 2-year working visa. And off I went to the UK, found a brasserie to work in Cheshire.
Tell me about the first day you walked in there.
It was scary because it was a professional restaurant kitchen. So lots of gadgets that I didn't understand. Lots of angry males looking at you like, what are you doing here?
And you're 20.
Yeah. And I sort of went in there as a commie chef because I had no chefing experience, and I was peeling potatoes, but I peeled those potatoes with the biggest smile, and I was so happy to be there. I was peeling carrots, I was doing all, the mundane work, chopping onions, the stuff that the other chefs didn't want to do. And because they could see the enthusiasm at which I was doing these like mundane jobs, they were like, oh, okay, let's give her more to do, let's give her more interest, and that's how I worked my way up in the kitchen.
So your dad was so right. Go and try it out.
Exactly.
And then you found, yes, this works.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I did that on and off for 2 years because I'd come home every now and then. And then when I came back home, I was like, yes, I want to be a chef. I'm going to study to be a chef. Because
why did you make that decision? Why not just cook?
Yeah, because you can cook, have a career just based on experience, and it's important to have that practical experience. But because I knew that it was a male-dominated industry, first of all, I wanted to be able to walk into a kitchen and no matter what, you had to call me chef because I'd earned it. I'd earned it because I had it on paper. And sometimes that's the only way you can speak to authority, is by going, listen, you may not respect me yet, but here are the papers, here's the proof. I am a chef, so you have to stand up and call me chef. So I sort of understood that was necessary for me. And also, first of all, being a female, and then also being black in the industry as well. I'd never seen anybody like me yet. So I needed to sort of have a standing. I needed to get my foot in the door so that I could show you what I was doing. I needed to be taken seriously.
It's so interesting that women cook. But when you go into the professional space, it's male dominated.
I know.
How weird is that?
How strange is that? It is. It's very strange strange concept, but that's what
And
how it
then
is.
when you started studying, did you enjoy it?
Loved it. I was the oldest in the class.
Yes.
I was studying at Institute of Culinary Arts in Stellenbosch. I did a 3-year course, so I studied my hot kitchen, my patisserie, and I got my City and Guilds qualification. Then I specialized in food media.
What does that mean?
So that means, that's why I sort of can do food writing, I can talk and do food demonstrations, food styling, food photography, that type of thing. So that's what that media specialization.
Why did you choose to go that way?
Because, you know, I still couldn't forget the fact that I like to talk. so I needed to be cooking, but also be able to sort of communicate and talk to people. So I knew that I wanted to do it on a platform that I could interact with people. And I think that the media sphere, in terms of food styling for magazines and publications, etc.
So did they actually train you in that
Absolutely,
field?
yes.
In presentation?
In presentation,
fantastic.
in styling in terms of presentation of food, yourself, all of that, yeah. Yeah.
And then what was your first job?
So as part of my sort of culinary arts specialization in media, I got placed at Top Billing magazine back then when it still existed as food assistant, to sort of get my experience in the industry, etc. So I did that for 6 months, and that was sort of my first job. I'd worked in restaurant kitchens in South Africa as well. I worked at Le Cartier at its prime, which I was very fortunate to do. I got to work with other, amazing chefs. Chris Erasmus, who I met at Le Cartier, is an amazing chef who showed me a lot of stuff. So I had those jobs, but that last 6 months at Top Billing, I think that probably impacted my life the most, just because that's what, the path in which I wanted my career to go. So I did that for 6 months, and then my boyfriend at the time, he got a huge opportunity to go and open the Da Vinci Hotel in Joburg. So that was like 2009, 2010. And I was like, oh, love, I'm going to go with you to Joburg. I'm going to move. We're going to make a life there. It didn't happen that way. But so I finished the Top Billing magazine. I finished my 6 months there, and I moved to Joburg. Was very unhappy in Joburg. I then told a friend of mine, listen, I'm not going to stay in Joburg. I'm going to come back. That was 6 months after I'd moved there. I'm going to come back to Cape Town and find a job in a kitchen and do
While
that.
we're talking about change moments, why that decision? And once again, it's quite quick. I mean, you stay 6 months and know this is not working, I'm going.
Yeah. You know what it is, Joburg for me, I love going there now to work, but it's not a place that I can live in. Just because my support system, like I said, my family is very close to me, and to be so far away from them was really difficult. Also, my boyfriend was a chef in a traditional kitchen, so I never got to see him. He's the reason why I moved there, but I never got to see him. So it sort of compounded the miserable state that I was in.
And you were not working?
I was working in catering. I was a catering manager for like a really, really huge company. So I was working in a corporate kitchen, if that makes sense. So it's not a traditional commercial kitchen.
Did you enjoy that?
I enjoyed it, but I hardly ever spent time in the kitchen. I never really cooked. I was just supervising. So I was like, oh, look, I've written a new recipe here, guys. Try it out and see if everybody loves it. And that's not really what... So I was very unhappy on many levels. So I told a friend I was moving back, and because the industry is so small, by telling that one person, they happened to mention it to someone else, and the producers of the Espresso Morning Show heard that I was coming back, and they're the same producers who started Top Billing magazine, and they called me and they were like, oh, we hear a rumor you're coming back. I was like, it's not quite a rumor if only one person knows, but cool. And they were like, we're starting this brand new show. It's never been done before in South Africa. It's like a variety morning show with cooking and pets and exercise. And I was like, oh, that sounds brilliant. Yes, I want to come and be the food stylist, so behind the scenes for the show. So the timing was so perfect. So I moved back. And for about a week, I did the food styling behind the scenes, so arranging chefs to be on the show, creating food content, finding trendy things to talk about, etc. And the producer, Patience Stevens, she looked at me one day in one of a very heated meeting, because new show, lots of heated moments, and she looked at me across the table, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, what did I do? I'm getting fired. What's happening? And she said, I want you to be on camera. And I said, absolutely not. Not what I signed up for. I'm happy just creating the content and supervising.
What scared you?
Unknown territory, just uncharted territory. I didn't know how I was going to come across. It was live television. That whole concept scared me. I'd seen how many cameras were around the studio. I'd seen it all happen, and it just was so daunting. So for about a month, I was like, absolutely not. No, not for me, not for me. Eventually, I got so tired of arguing about it. I was like, fine, I'll do it. Just
and
to
you'll
prove
see
you
it
wrong.
doesn't work.
Exactly. We'll do it once. This conversation will end. And I never got off air. I did it that one time, and that was my life for,
And
for 7 years.
Did you like the camera?
I did. I kind of forgot that it was there. I forgot that I was performing, and I was literally just doing what I love in front of people. And that's literally what started my entire career path.
Yeah. And the cookbooks, how did that happen?
Well, that happened because my amazing publisher, Penguin Random House, they obviously believed in what I did. So they obviously saw me on Espresso, and they'd known that I was a foodie at that time. And they liked the type of food that I made, and they were like, let's do this together. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, let's.
Where do your recipes come from?
I draw inspiration from a lot of things. Seasonality, a lot of nostalgia. So I like to think back to what my grandmother taught me, what my mom taught me, and sort of change it up and make it more accessible for myself these days, for example. But seasonality does play a big role, and also just, experimenting. So trying new things out, new ingredients.
So do you stand at the stove and you start cooking, and you keep notes about what you're doing?
I do. I photograph everything. So even on my Instagram, I often do cook-alongs, because I literally photograph every step just so I remember. So I don't write anything down. I take photos, and then afterwards I'll type out the recipe. So that's how I do it. I literally browse through markets or even the supermarket, walking around, and I'll see something and be like, ooh, I haven't had that in a while. Oh, let me try something. And I get home and I mix it all together, and I'm like, oh, that's a great one. Let me share it. Or, oh no, let's keep that one to myself.
And tell me about the Gourmand, what is it called?
The Gourmand World Cookbook Awards. That's a mouthful.
And you've won it now with both books.
I have.
Tell me about the first time. Did someone call you and you thought this was the wrong number?
Literally, that's exactly what happened. The same scenario as when I got the email from yourself. I was in complete disbelief and shock. So I received an email going, your first book, Simply Delicious is the name of my first book, has been nominated for a World Gourmand Cookbook Award. And I was like, oh, their cookbook awards, because obviously it was my first cookbook, so I had no idea. And I was like, oh, and they were like, oh, we're having them in Yantai, China. I was like, whoa, this is a scam. They're having cookbook awards for the world.
Used to be
China.
Nigeria, and now
what's going on? And then I did some research, and I was like, oh, they actually exist. They've been running for about 15 years then. And I was like, oh wow, people in China and in France know my book. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Was going to go for the experience and just to be part of this cookbook crowd. And then my book won, and I was like, what has happened? I've entered the Twilight Zone. It was unbelievable, and I was really, really excited. And then when my second book, Simply Zola, also got nominated, I was like, hang on, I must be onto something really cool. And the feeling was very different the second time around, because I was like, okay, people understand what I'm doing. They understand the type of food that I'm trying to share, and that's really cool. So I sort of was a pat on the shoulder this time. It was less disbelief and more like, yay.
And it's also now you are part of that community,
Absolutely.
that international community.
Absolutely, and it's not a fluke this time.
Yeah, that must be amazing.
Amazing. And still didn't think that I would win. Went for the experience. This time it was in Macau, in Hong Kong, or like an island off of Hong Kong. And I went for the experience as well. And I literally, when I tell you that I didn't think that I was going to win, I really didn't. I'd always take my sister with, because she's my favorite traveling buddy. And she's sitting next to me, and I'm like, oh no, my category is probably over. But this is such an awesome holiday, and I probably didn't win, but it's fine. And she was like, relax. And then they said my category, but I didn't really register that they'd said it. And all of a sudden I saw the books that were nominated in my category up, and I saw my book. I was like, oh, that's my book. And my sister started recording. I didn't realize at the time, because I know now because she gave me the video. And I was like, oh, my book. Oh, okay, this must be my category. And I was like, oh. And then all of a sudden, and it was all very fuzzy, and all of a sudden I saw my book in big by itself. And I was like, that means I won. Oh my gosh, I won. And my sister captured that entire reaction. And they were even on stage going, Zola Nene, is she here? Is she here from South Africa? And I was like, I'm here. I was just shocked. So like ran on stage and did an acceptance speech, and it was really amazing.
And then a few years ago, someone asked you in an interview about dreams and plans, and you said you'd really love to have your own show.
I did.
And now you have Celeb's Feast.
Yes, Celeb Feast with Zola.
How did that happen? Did you initiate it? Did someone approach you?
Well, no. Oguhle Media, the production company that I sort of worked with on the project, they called me in and they said, listen, we love what you've been doing for so many years on TV. It's time that you got your own platform and were able to tell your own food stories however you feel. And I was like, yay, thank you for believing in me. And we literally sat and they asked me in that meeting, what type of show would you like to make? And I literally just spewed it. I was like, I want to get to know people's stories and I want to share my recipes with them, but I also want to teach people. And together we sort of refined this idea and created Celeb Feast. And it was a complete collaboration and literally the best working experience I have ever had.
It works like a charm.
It's amazing when you feel like your voice is heard.
Yeah.
And, you know, a project can only belong to you if you are a true contributor to the actual project. And that's exactly what Celeb Feast is. And I'm so glad that it is what it is. It's beautiful, even if I say so myself. And it's just, I love it. I love the show.
Are you a planner? Do you have a 5-year plan, or do you just take on whatever happens?
No, I like to, you know, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I think at the back of my mind, I have a plan. I never say the plan out loud because I don't ever want to be...
It might jinx it.
Yeah, I never, exactly. It might jinx it. I don't want to be disappointed out loud. I'd rather sort of, you know, change the plan in my head as things navigate very differently. But I do love to sort of take things and opportunities that I may never have thought of and embrace them as well. So I don't like to have a concrete plan. There's room for movement.
Okay, so we'll leave it at that and not force you to spell it out and go to some personal stuff.
Yes.
Something else you said in an interview that I liked was that your favorite Valentine's Day is cooking with a significant other.
Yes, that would be nice. I haven't had such a Valentine's Day. But it would be lovely, just because...
Now, what would it take to be the perfect significant other? This is not an advertisement.
Oh no, it is. Kidding. Oh gosh. For me, I think that I look for self-confidence in a partner. I talk a lot and I have a very big personality. So the person that I'm with has to be confident within themselves. They can't look for me to give that to them. Also somebody who could just accept all of this crazy, because I understand I'm a lot, I talk a lot, I do a lot, and I'm all over the place, so that, you know, my significant other has to be able to navigate that situation. And also somebody who just lets me be a partner and not dictate to me, not control me in any way.
Not have defined roles.
Absolutely, not gender defined roles especially, you know. So I've lived a very long life and I'm a very independent woman. So the man that I'm going to be with has to be equally independent, first of all, and has to accept that I'm independent. And when we go on dates or trips, it's got to be a 50-50 thing. If you want to take me on a trip, fantastic. I love being spoiled. Yes, I'll go. But if I want to take you on a trip, equally, let me do it. It's not the man's responsibility. So I need somebody who understands that fully, because, you know, it's hard to give up independence once you've had it for so long.
This is being recorded in Women's Month, and I think it's a wonderful message.
Yeah.
Because I think women also need to hear that we need to learn to stand on our own feet and be an equal partner.
Absolutely. You don't need a partner to complete you. You just need a partner to sort of walk life with you.
But you had a role model in your mother.
I did. So my mom worked as a teacher for many years. She retired early, but for many years. My dad, an engineer, and my parents were married in community or property back in apartheid days. I think that was the only choice that they had. So my mom earned her own money, and my dad earned the money. But my dad's money was the family's money, and my mom's money was her money. So she would spend her money on, you know, clothes for her, clothes for us, treats for the family. But my dad would take care of the finances. So I think that seeing a woman who had her own money to spend, obviously clicked with me, and I kind of understood what that meant and how freeing that was. She didn't have to wait for my dad to give her money for her to be able to spend money. It was her money to spend.
And talk to me about home. Where do you live? Why? What made you choose it?
So I have been living in Boortesig in Cape Town for the past 2 months. I lived in Greenpoint, Sea Point for about 7 or 8 years.
In an apartment
in
or
a
in a
very
house?
small apartment. A very small apartment. I love to call it my little dungeon at the time.
Why did you choose that?
I chose that because when I was working at Expresso, it was very early morning, so the commute had to be short. I could get to and from work in 7 minutes in the morning, and it made sense. I also didn't need the space because I was young. All I was doing was working, sleeping, partying, and I needed to be in the buzz close to town. And as I got older, I realized that the freedom of space and also not having your neighbors on top of you is very is necessary at this age. So I moved to Boortesig so that I could have space and I could have a house with rooms and my family could come and live with me. And I'm loving it. I love the burbs. It's so peaceful.
Yeah. But so you only moved 2 months ago.
Yeah.
How do you turn a house, just a
shell?
I'm learning Zulu.
Oh.
The difference between Indlu and Kaya.
Kaya, yeah.
How do you turn a house into a home?
I think filling it with things that mean stuff to you. So putting I've got so many family pictures in there, and also actually I moved my sister and her husband and her son in with me. Because I had the space, I might as well, and I'm hardly ever home, I travel a lot, but I moved them in as well to add the warmth. But I think more than that, if you don't have an entire family to move in, not everybody does. I think putting things that mean a lot to you and make it feel like your own space. Because like you said, it's just Indlu, a house, a shell, until you make it yours and you make it your home. And just your own little nuances, maybe painting the wall a different color, putting in my signature purple couch that's so obnoxious that nobody else would love, but I adore it. And just making it comfortable for you, I think is important.
Well, may you enjoy it.
Thank you.
May your time there bring you wonderful things, wonderful things. And we're looking forward to the next book.
Oh gosh, Ruda, no, too much pressure. Too much pressure.
Thank you so much for spending time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Until the next time, goodbye.
Was that okay? Because I ramble on. Was it fun? Okay.